So, 9 games down, 9 draws. And I'm not impressed, like, at all with Magnus's white today. This is reminiscent of Game 4. And I think, in all honesty, at this point, we see that Magnus's match strategy is simply to take it to the tiebreak, where everybody and my mom knows he has an advantage over Caruana, and Caruana is known to not be nearly as strong and rapid. So I honestly feel that Carlsen is going to try to draw the rest of the match in order to quickly win in the tiebreak. And it's kind of disgusting for chess in general, because I want to see the dominance of the world champion. If he is in fact going to be the greatest player ever, he's got to show it. And I didn't see it when I was in New York for the Karyakin-Carlsen match, and I'm not seeing it as I'm watching online each day as the games are taking place against Caruana, and I'm very happy I didn't go to London for this, to be completely honest. So I know I'm being very critical and harsh, because we have arguably the two strongest players of the time period playing at the pinnacle of their games, being as cautious and careful as they can. But at some point, something's got to give. Somebody's got to hit the other guy. This is just two boxers dancing right now. This is like watching Mayweather fight. Not exactly something I get enthusiastic about either. But okay, let me give you a for instance of if I felt Magnus was trying to win. This is a game that Magnus played against Topalov in the Gashima Memorial. So it started e3, bishop b4, and e3 is how I think you can inject some life into the English. And here there's a ton of different lines, as we discussed at the beginning of game 4, but bishop takes c3, and Aronian had an opening innovation here. Everybody had been playing queen takes c3 with an Imzo-Indian-esque idea, and black just gets full equality. But b takes c3 is this awkward move that has some interesting developments to it. So if e4 is the first thing, you have knight g5, black defends the pawn, and you have f3. So you end up getting a position that looks like this with a dynamic pawn structure in the bishop pair. This, I feel, is an interesting position to try to play. Now, in the Carlsen-Topalov game, we had d6. And Carlsen plays e4 himself to stop that idea. And you end up with, if black doesn't play knight e8 f5, you're going to end up with like a really, really good King's Indian for white. Because you're going to play d3, bishop g2, castles, get your knight out of the way, and play f4. So I think Topalov made a good decision here playing this knight e8 and f5 idea. Ooh, sorry. So knight h4, direct prophylaxis against f5. You want to be able to take back with a knight to preserve the good bishop. And this position, though pretty docile, you got the bishop pair. You got a booger's worth. You got a little bit going for you. And at some point, it just falls apart for Topalov. I mean, everything looks clean, and things are going well, and then the tactics and stuff, and it just goes. And then that was all she wrote. And I mean, if he's making it look this easy against a former world championship candidate with this line, why not try it out? Because surely you know when you're playing the variation that was played in the game that the desired result's a draw. And it should be painfully apparent to everyone at this point what the match strategy is. And I just like going through the rest of this game because it was great. And with the win. Because if the rook takes the queen, the pawn queen's first, you win. If the rook doesn't take the queen, it moves away. And after the check on g6, followed by f6, this looks like a winner. So coming back to the main game, g3. And Caruana repeats the same line, the sixth choice in the database, I believe, and I don't blame him. I'd never blame the person playing black in a professional game for playing a solid line and just trying to get a draw. It is on the burden of the player playing white to try to prove something. And in game 4, bishop d2 was played, a very mediocre and docile move, and Carlsen doesn't stretch too much in regards to his preparation to play bishop g5. A few exchanges occur, and this was the only point in the game where a real fight could break out. Black, I believe, has full equality. He's got good piece play. Everything looks good. Queen c2, threatening e4, so we grab that. Caruana definitely could have played e4 here to mix it up, but again, I don't blame him for this. E takes d4, getting some nice simplification in. And if a draw is what you're looking for, you got it, because now we have mass simplifications. And honestly, if this wasn't a match playing by Sophia rules, I think the players would have already agreed to a draw here on move 22. But they're required to play on, therefore they play on. And I really like this, because a lot of time when I'll play a move like h4, I'll get h6 from an opponent, and then I'm going to be able to work on the light squares. g6 is a great move, shutting down any potential light square action that's going to come later. So h5, and at least we got some dynamic play for the pawn structure being compromised. And the entire game after h4, h5 revolves around it. Because, I mean, surely something wasn't happening on the queen side. And then when we reach this ending, there's simply just not much to it. Bishop of opposite color with queens on the board. Both kings are safe. 2 pawns each. Outside passer, the a pawn could be a little bit worrisome. So, we start trying to work with that some. But once the queens are traded, it's really, we agree that it's done. And I'm not quite sure why the players were playing on here. I really don't think there was much to it, in all honesty. But that's that. Draw in 56 moves. You know, in each generation, if you look at chess history with the world champions, when you had a Capablanca, a defensive and positional genius, you have an answer to him with an Alekhine, an aggressive, tactical, highly calculating player. And then we fast forward, you know, when you have a Karpov, you have a Kasparov, and vice versa. After Kasparov, you have a Kramnik, another solid positional player for the most part. Now, in modern day, you have universal players, which can, you know, it's like boxers being ambidextrous. They can hit with both hands. But Carlsen is definitely a universal player, but he gravitates more towards positional ideas, a lot like a Karpov. What I'm hoping for in the next World Championship is somebody like a Ding Liren rise up to face whoever wins this, to play some King's Indians and inject some life, because I believe recently Ding had 100 games at the top level without a loss. Pretty impressive. He can definitely draw some games like these guys too, but I definitely appreciate his repertoire and feel like he'd put more fight into these games than what's currently being seen by the champion.